Resource Minister John Herron. Je tiens à vous informer que des services d'interprétation sont disponibles. Vous pouvez y accéder en cliquant sur le bouton d'interprétation en bas de l'écran. I'd like to let you know that Bon après-midi à tous et bonne fête nationale de l'Acadie. Bienvenue à cette conférence de presse avec le ministre des Ressources naturelles, John Herron. Good afternoon, everyone, and happy National Acadian Day. Welcome to this media availability with Natural Resource Minister John Herron. I'd like to let you know that interpretation services are available. You can access them by clicking on the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen. Before I turn things over to the minister, I would like to ask everyone to please ensure your microphones are placed on mute. Minister.
Just making sure compliant first. Au début, peut-être un peu.
At first, I would like to start with something more positive. I'm very proud of having the opportunity to wish you a happy Acadian Day, the National Acadian Day, for the 15th of August.
For on today's wildfire situation in the province, we'll go through essentially the same material at a high level that we have in past days. Happy to answer questions as we move forward. As of 3 o'clock, there are currently 23 fires in the province. À l'heure actuelle, on a
As at 3 o'clock, we have 23 wildfires in the province.
Are considered to still be of note, that being the Irishtown fire that we're very, very pleased that we're in a much better situation there than we were just a few days ago. That fire is deemed to be contained. It's in a good situation. The next step that we're looking to see within that particular fire is for it to be deemed under control. And the difference there, just from a vernacular perspective, is contained is that we got it, and under control means we own it. And of course, the fire that captures an extraordinary amount of attention is the Oldfield fire, which considers to rage and is north of 1,400 hectares. If you live in an impacted area, you should be prepared to evacuate on short notice, and you should make sure your emergency preparedness kit is ready. Si vous vivez dans
If you live in an impacted area, please be prepared to evacuate on short notice and make sure your emergency preparedness kit is ready.
Need to evacuate, an evacuation alert will be issued, and you will receive an alert ready message. You'll see it on your social media, on your TVs, and hear it on your radio. While you're preparing for a potential evacuation, this is a good time to check on your neighbors, families, friends in your community. Is there anyone who might need help with respect to preparing for a potential evacuation? A few words on forecast. The upcoming forecast is generally sunny with some rain projected, but much like the rain that we got the last few days, it's probably not going to be enough to make a long-term difference. In particular, what we're seeing in our satellite tracking is that the rains that we have been receiving, unfortunately, are bringing lightning along with it, which can be very problematic on creating new starts. I would maybe want to share is that the optimal, more rain is better. But having a lot of rain all at once can actually be a bit problematic. is that it can create conditions where it'll be difficult to move the steel in the ground, those bulldozers, the heavy equipment around. So it can actually detract from our ability to actually combat fires. So if we could have this a constant mist for about 2 or 3 weeks, that would be the ideal situations if that were to arise. And it's important to know that lightning strikes don't always create an immediate fire. So we may have lightning, and a strike has occurred, but that can smolder for up to 2 weeks. So it's important for us to ensure that we stay vigilant, pay attention, that we do the reconnaissance that we do each evening, where we're able to identify potential sparks in tracking our fires. I'd like to speak for a moment with respect to air quality related issues. As the smoke levels increase, so does the potential health risks. So people impacted should limit their time outdoors, consider rescheduling any outside sports and activities and events, and those areas that I was speaking to are. It's not just the weather. You know, I do want to note that smoke from the fires is causing or is expected to cause poor air quality and reduced visibility, particularly in the Miramichi and Moncton areas. A couple other words, if I may. I would like to thank all the people that are on the ground. I spent the last 2 days, along with my colleague, the Minister for Public Safety, Robert Gauvin, and the Premier. We were literally boots on the ground ourselves at the Irishtown fire. I can tell you that the team that is there. Mopping up some of the aftermath at Irishtown, they are absolutely elated, but they're not as numerous as they were before. Those same firefighters are now additional boots on the ground, working out of the Miramichi Fire Center and attacking the Oldfield fire. I am awestruck by the stamina, endurance, the enthusiasm, the professionalism of all those firefighters from DNR who are they may be working in shifts, but they're showing up and putting in an enormous efforts on behalf of New Brunswickers, on behalf of our communities, on behalf of New Brunswick families, and I will probably speak to that particular issue every single time that I'm here because it is absolutely inspiring. I have a comment related to logistics. As a note, while we are incredibly grateful for everyone who has shown their support for our firefighters around the province, we are asking that people please do not bring food or drinks up to the fire teams. It's a great gesture. I'm just heartened. I think it's absolutely wonderful how the folks in the Miramichi are rallying around this. The local MLAs, when Sam Johnson, Michelle Conroy, I'm in contact with them on a regular basis. They just want to help, but with the circumstance with respect to bringing food, that we do have guidelines related to food safety and the like, but that's really not the big challenge. The big challenge is logistics, because I want New Brunswickers to know is that we are feeding, watering, making sure that those firefighters have every single thing that they need, even including from a food and drink perspective. So thank you very much for the very sincere gesture, but logistically it is a little bit of a challenge for us to handle. Is there anything else that I want to finish up with? While Crown lands are still closed, we are under very strict protocols, allowing certain operations to continue as exceptions. These are variances. We're looking for fewer situations to have variances in, not more. But we're doing this to minimize the economic impacts and support workers to support those folks who are trying to provide for their families. This includes specific cases where mills are facing critical inventory shortages and other exceptional circumstances. In these cases, we have temporarily permitted overnight trucking of wood that was already roadside, with the added precaution of enhanced fire equipment and site monitoring requirements. That type of equipment would be to ensure that they have tanks of water in tow. They'd have additional personnel that would be fire spotters. So those are some of the precautions that would be included in that particular type of situation. Similarly, we have launched a permitting process to allow wild blueberry growers to harvest wild blueberries on Crown land leases under certain conditions, and or use Crown land roads to access their private wild blueberry fields. Nous avons aussi mis en place.
We also put in place a specific authorization process to allow the blueberry growers to harvest wild blueberries on Crown lands leases under certain conditions, and to use Crown land roads to access their private wild blueberry fields.
We've implemented a permitting process that allows for the safe processing of Herald stockpiled peat, which is deemed as a significant fire risk. It can essentially spontaneously combust, so it's better for us to get that moved. However, all other activities related to the new production or extraction of peat are still in prohibition. Right now, wildfires are a problem across the country throughout Atlantic Canada. And because of that, we are sharing resources as needed to manage situations based on severity. I am pleased to say again that each day it would appear that we have additional resources added to our toolkit, both in human resources and with respect to equipment. So we do have 40 firefighters. These are highly trained attack units. Those firefighters are coming from the province of Ontario. I think there was a typo where I think we suggested earlier today that they were coming from Alberta, but those folks are coming from Ontario, just as a correction there. The 20 firefighters who are helping us out from the province of Nova Scotia, they'll be returning back to Nova Scotia on Saturday from a flight infrastructures that we have as part of our equipment. The addition of 3 CL-215s. These are sort of like mid-sized water bombers. They're heavily agile, or highly agile for us to be able to snuff out fires before they become even more problematic. So they've been added to the toolkit for a short period of time, as we do anticipate that we may be adding 2 additional CF-415s. Those are the larger water bombers that would make the count to 4. And we have a very strong desire to have those 4 super scoopers to be really the key infrastructure that we'll use to get out in front of the fire at Oldfield, and so that we can get that one under control. So I believe that should, some more information to help respond to questions and provide information related to wildfires. We've created a phone line. That phone number is 1-833-333-3666. 301-0334. This, our social media, and our Fire Watch page give New Brunswickers options to find information and stay informed. And I believe that, just for clarity, those folks who didn't capture that number will be available on the page on Fire Watch. And I think that concludes my the update for today. Happy to field any questions that you folks might have.
Thank you, Minister. We will now proceed with questions from members of the media. Each reporter will have one question and one follow-up, and you have the right to pose your question in the official language of your choice. Nous allons maintenant procéder au...
We will now move on to questions from reporters. Each reporter will have a question, a follow-up question. You can ask the question in the language of your choice. Savannah Otts.
Thanks. I'm wondering if, so the Oldfield fire is in its 10th day, I believe, of burning, and I'm wondering if you can explain how that fire got so out of control, and I mean, it's still getting bigger. How did this happen?
So, in terms of its size and magnitude, I'll simplify it at first, is that there's a fire, and there's a fuel source that is exceptionally dry. Not just the forest floor that we get. It's usually that is dry. It's quite combustible, but from limbs, branches, trees itself. So the fuel source is the biggest issue. Having said that, though, is that if you think about it, just over a week ago, that fire was sitting at around 65 hectares, and we had a pretty good night, and we're able to rustle that back down to 22 hectares. So it was vectoring in the right direction. It jumped in two different places after that fire break, and because of just how tinder dry the floor is, it ran again. And it ran really hard. We've so far only been able to steer it, and we have not been able to get out in front of it just because it is that robust. I've had the chance to be able to have conversations over the course of the day in the Miramichi, and our firefighter teams are highly experienced. Most of their exceptional expertise, ironically, was developed outside of New Brunswick, where they fought the big fires in the Northwest Territories, in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, and they're seeing this as a fire of that magnitude, but their comment is that time and time again they haven't seen a forest this dry. So it is problematic. We hope that we don't have another Oldfield fire again over the next number of weeks, but we just have to understand is that this situation can change, by the hour, by the evening, with an array of lightning strikes that could be problematic.
And as you said, a few weeks of mist-type rain is what's necessary, I guess, in terms of help. Is there a sense of how far away we are from seeing the restrictions on being in the woods, pulled back? Do we have a sense of that at this point?
I don't think we're going to make any decision that we would see that could put New Brunswick families and communities at risk. We've taken the decision to do that based on the current fire risk. If that fire risk changes, then the precautions will change. Absent of an improvement with respect to the level of dryness on the forest floor, we believe this was the right thing to do then. So the conditions would need to change.
Thank you. Avery McRae, CTV.
Appreciate the time as always, Minister. I wanted to ask a little bit more about the lightning strikes from last night. Just how challenging was that trying to deal with, and how many fires did those lightning strikes start, if we know at this time?
So this was back-to-back days of lightning strikes. So I think I know 2 days ago there were 10 new fires that were identified from those lightning strikes. Last evening, that it was a similar number. I'll use that as a placeholder until I find it. But the point is that I tried to raise, those lightning strikes may hit the forest floor and smolder, and we may not see its evolution of it becoming a fire for a couple of days later. So the number of fires could actually grow, even though the lightning strike may have occurred a day or two previously.
And just staying on the weather point, you talked about the weather coming up this weekend, looking relatively sunny. How is that going to help, not help firefighters over the course of the weekend?
I found it almost amazing to have conversations with these firefighters today. Is that it's still kind of warm up in the Miramichi. It's 22, 23 degrees, still a pretty warm day, sunny, and they are just so relieved in terms of being on the conditions that they actually think they can fight and go at it even harder. But it must have been just incredibly daunting, challenging what those firefighters were doing in temperatures in the upper 30s.
Thank you. Anna Mandan, Global News.
Yeah, hi. I just actually kind of want to jump off that question. Coming into the weekend, what are you expecting in terms of growth from the Oldfield Road fire? You also mentioned, this is kind of a two-part question, coming into the weekend, you said you don't want to see any expansions of Oldfield Road fires. How likely is that?
With this team, I think that we've got a very good chance that we won't see that replicated. But it's a very tough environment, and so they're having additional infrastructure, having these firefighters at the ready, having these attack units. That clearly lessens the likelihood of something of that magnitude occurring. But we still have to pay attention to it. I don't want to. There are true professionals who understand the behaviors of wildfires, and I don't want to overly predict what we're going to see over the course of the weekend. I had the opportunity to get coached up by the professionals in Miramichi earlier today. That they are making a fair amount of progress and with respect to building out a fire break. That's helping steer it, but clearly will be part of the infrastructure which we're going to have to require and in order to contain that fire at some point. The winds this evening are not helpful. The winds tomorrow are helpful in terms of steering it back. So I don't have a figure in hectares about what we expect to see, as a result on Monday, which is a little bit different though than what we saw about 5 days ago. Our center was sure that the Oldfield fire would double overnight. So the fact that they didn't have that same level of alarm, I think that's a positive development. That's what I got firsthand when I was in the Miramichi over the course of the day.
Do you have a follow-up, Anna?
Yeah, so you talked about folks in affected areas preparing to evacuate. I know that there's a number of fires around the province. What do you define as an affected area? Who should be worried about this?
So if if EMO believes that a home or a person is at risk, they will send an advisory. If they think that that location is going to be threatened with the fire, the alert will go out and they'll be asked to move.
Back Post Media.
I'll jump off that point. So we had 1,500 people who were told to stand down from evacuation notice. What is the present number of people who are on evacuation notice? Do we know that? I mean, the situation's changing quickly, but and they're scattered all over these areas that aren't that habitated. But I just want to make sure.
I'm going to say subject to check. Is that the only advisory that was in play was we had an advisory on the fire that's known as Lumsden Road, that's near Hilltop, and that advisory has been rescinded. So there is no advisory for a pending evacuation at this point.
And 2 days ago, it was mentioned that there's been no loss of life, no structures lost, 3 injuries, all firefighters who were treated successfully in hospital for heat exhaustion. Has that changed at all?
Changed slightly in terms of the number of firefighters who were challenged from a heat exhaustion perspective. I found that out firsthand today, that there was a higher number. It was less than 10. I'm going to say 7 individuals subject to check, but I knew it was a couple more than just the 3. I do want to say one thing, though, what I was able to see today. I learned an awful lot about the SPU, Structure Prevention Unit. It's not by accident that we haven't lost a structure. The methodologies that these folks do in terms of getting in to areas where they've potentially asked for an evacuation, they're no longer there at their camp. Those folks along the Kenna Road in particular, in terms of what they do in terms of setting up water tanks and sprinklers and tubing and pumps and checking on them. The preventative actions that particular unit is, I was really impressed. On my phone is that I took a video of, and anybody follows my social media, you know I don't do a whole lot of stuff out there and that kind of thing. So, but I took a video today, I haven't posted it, but of a cell tower that is almost right in the middle of the Oldfield fire. It is standing tall. And what these folks did, they knew that piece of critical infrastructure was at risk, and they had cleared a fire break, bulldozed all the fuel away from that piece of infrastructure. So what I captured was 360 degrees fire all around it, and that tower is still there. And so we've got a highly skilled team here in the province of New Brunswick, and the work that they're doing is saving critical infrastructure and saving homes of New Brunswickers.
I know you're in the thick of it, but how much thought has been given by your government to what needs to be done in the future once these wildfires are out and we have a future wildfire season? How much more money should be spent? How many more teams should be created? That sort of thing.
I think provinces across the country are going to have pretty serious conversations with themselves in terms of what amount of infrastructure is required on a go-forward basis. This is going to be an increasing threat, not one that's going to go away. The infrastructure that we have in the Forest Protection Limited in terms of that area infrastructure, that seems like a pretty good decision to have that in place today. We have, as I said before, we'd ordered two air bosses, which are float planes which are kind of the same size of water bombers that we have. Those being the Air Attack 802 water bombers, but they have to land to get water. These other ones we'll be able to fuel out on lakes and the ocean, and so there's having a conversation about a couple more of those might be had. We already know that we share infrastructure on a regional basis with the through CIFC. There's probably a conversation that we might want to have with our Atlantic Canadian brethren. So you asked me if I had put any thought into this. Still early days, early hours, but having more infrastructure to combat fire, especially from an air attack perspective, I think that's going to be part of it. I also think that, so we did a press conference a few months back on our Fire Smart campaign. I'm going to ask all New Brunswickers to go to that page, Fire Smart, Government New Brunswick page, and there are things that we can do as New Brunswickers to avoid the setting of forest fires. There are things that you can do to make your house a lot safer should a fire actually be in your area. Simple things such as if you've got trees that actually lean against your house. I have a lilac tree that leans against my house. I have a feeling that thing is going to get trimmed sometime very soon. If it's touching your house, that is basically a conduit of a flame to actually to attack your house. So I think when we do that campaign in a next year perspective, that we'll put even more enthusiasm around it. And I would suggest that New Brunswickers' ears are going to be that much more open to those types of discussions.
Natalie Sturgeon, CHCO TV, The Courier.
Hi, Minister. Thanks for taking my question. There's a fire in our neck of the woods, but it's across the border in Baileyville. And I did speak to the Maine Fire Service this morning, who said it's 80% contained. But obviously, New Brunswickers can't see that on the forest fire map. And there was some concern from residents in Charlotte County about, but as you mentioned earlier, it jumping across the river. So I wondered, have you been in conversation with Maine about that particular fire, and what can you do for communities that are along the border who are also experiencing dry conditions and may not have access to as much information?
So I can confirm that our fire center was indeed in contact with the folks in Maine on that particular fire, because when it was first identified, it was we're able to see that through different satellite infrastructure, et cetera. We weren't sure what side of the border it was on, when, I guess at first blush, but the infrastructure that we have here in the province of New Brunswick, it would not be out of the ordinary for us to get a request to do a drop of water or a fire retardant to address that fire on that border. To get a request, or we might even say, make a proactive call and saying, we'd like to help you out with that, because we want to make sure that we protect the families and the communities on our side of the border.
And if I could just follow up on a question that was asked earlier on the Oldfield fire, I'm wondering what the terrain is like. Obviously, this one's gotten a bit out of control, worse than the other fires. Is there clear cuts involved in this landscape? What is the terrain like? Why would it have gotten so big as opposed to the other ones, which you've been able to kind of successfully contain to a certain number of hectares?
So I probably can't speak to every particular hectare in that fire. I saw a fair amount of it earlier today. It would look very much like your typical New Brunswick forest, where you have mixed forest, you would have hardwood and softwood. I suspect there's apt to be a clear cut in there as well, and in some circumstances that actually might be helpful. But so it would be a mix. I have not heard from our firefighting team that the topography is particularly problematic in that. On that fire, it is the intensity of the fire itself and just how dry the fuel source is. Having said that, there is another fire that is known as Chief, that we've been able to contain to a large degree, but that topography is very difficult. Though on the basis that there are some ravines that make it hard for us to be able to get at. It's quite remote, and so topography can make things difficult.
Okay, that concludes the questions for today, Minister. Did you have any closing comments?
My closing comments would be that the government of New Brunswick is immensely grateful for how cooperative New Brunswickers have been, how understanding New Brunswickers have been. With respect to these precautions that we're taking to encourage folks to stay out of the woods, to help to mitigate that risk. As the Premier mentioned just the other day, it's summertime. We like being in our backyards and having that fire and inviting your friends to have a conversation, have an alpine, enjoy the summer experience, where we just have to do it this way with perhaps a flashlight for ambulance as opposed to sparking a fire. So thank you, New Brunswick, for being part of the solution. We knew you would step up, and great. I'm heartened to have the level of support that we're receiving.
Voilà la fin de cette conférence de presse. Merci tout le monde.
This concludes the press conference.